You were born in Europe, in the 17th century, to be exact. Your town was nameless to most, just a cluster of crooked houses, smoke-stained chimneys, and cobbled streets where the church bells ruled the hours. Your father was a merchant when trade was kind. Your mother sold herbs she gathered from hedgerows. There were too many mouths, not enough books. You don't remember the first spark. You were too young. 7, maybe 8. What you do remember are the questions. Why did the sky crack with thunder? Why iron rusted, but gold stayed bright? Why candles melted into smoke and nothingness? You asked, and the grown-ups had no answers. Or worse, they gave answers too small. So you went looking. The hunger wasn't for bread, but for knowledge. It made you copy diagrams by candlelight until the wax burned your fingertips. It made you grind glass into lenses until your eyes stung. The way your tutor looked at you was not cruel, just calculating. Before long, you were apprenticed. Not sold, but handed over. Your curiosity was too sharp to leave in the mud. Your father said it was for your own good. Your mother didn't say anything. She just rested her hand on your shoulder, as if sending you off with the weight of her silence. The man who took you wasn't smiling kindly, but he was smiling. He carried books instead of coins. He spoke of stars, of levers, of invisible worlds. You screamed with joy inside, though you stayed quiet. Crying hadn't helped where you came from. But here, tears weren't needed. The road ahead was long, and you weren't the only one. Others crowded in libraries, dusty, hungry, silent. Some struggled at first. They stopped too. Some were stolen by faith, some by poverty, some by both. All of you are heading to the same place. Not Beijing, but Bologna. Not a brothel, but an academy. A world of red candles and barred windows, where secrets of discovery waited. You didn't know the word yet, but soon it would be the only one that mattered. Scientist. In the beginning, they treated you like something valuable. You were fed, taught, groomed. Not like livestock, but like an instrument to be tuned. One boy sneezed too much over the chemicals, and they sent him back to the church schools. You didn't ask questions. You knew better. You learned quickly how to hold glassware like relics, how to copy equations until your wrist is cramped, how to listen without speaking. They renamed you, not a flower, but a philosopher. Natural philosopher, because that's what they called science before the word existed. Now you were 10, so you knew how to sit still, how to say thank you. And now you were going to learn to observe, because soon you would learn what the world was for. And you had to learn fast, before plague or war could snatch you away. Your training began the day your master decided you were ready. He was the keeper of knowledge, the gate at which you waited, kind to the new apprentices, with warm bread and fires to thaw frozen fingers. But that kindness thinned as you grew sharper. Birthdays didn't matter anymore. You belonged to the academy. They began with the body. Early mornings, stone benches cold enough to bite, ink-stained fingertips that never came clean. Back bent over manuscripts until your spine groaned. Every inch of you smelled of candle soot and sulfur. They made you walk out to measure the shadow of a stick at noon. They made you chart the stars until your neck locked. You were corrected with sharp words. You were praised with glimpses of secrets, a new lens, a scribbled formula, a chemical reaction hidden in margins. You preferred the corrections. They made sense. Praise felt like a trick. Every week they gave you something new. A prism to split light, a bone to dissect, a plant to classify. You learned to breathe through the fumes of boiling mixtures. Eventually, you learned to pretend to enjoy the endless calculations. By 14, you were doing shows. Not public ones, not yet. Quiet demonstrations in cloisters, in rooms lit by dripping candles and heavy curtains. You aligned mirrors, balanced scales, sketched the curve of a planet's path. You bent, twisted, calculated. They made you act as though the truth was obvious, as if you were merely uncovering what everyone already knew. If you didn't smile, they reminded you that skeptics were watching. No bruises here bruises lowered your credibility. Instead, doubt was the enemy, and you learned to hide it. They gave you concoctions not to change your body, but to sharpen your mind. Bitter coffee, foul tonics that kept your eyes open long into the night. Your boyhood receded into parchment, lenses, powders. You became an echo of ink and chalk dust. Men with rings and robes came to watch. They picked favorites. You prayed it wasn't you, but eventually it always was. They renamed you again. Not an apprentice now, but a philosopher of nature. A promotion, whether you liked it or not. You stopped sleeping much. Your lips cracked from whispering Latin passages before they faded from memory. You dreamed of fire, and of a world where fire itself could be explained. But each morning you awoke still here, still scribbling, still owned by ideas, still learning to live with discovery. Soon the doors opened wider. Not just cloisters now, but lecture halls. Not just apprentices watching, but nobles, merchants, bishops. You stood behind tables crowded with glass, powders, magnets, bones. You bent over them like a conjurer, though you never called it magic. You called it nature. They made you act as though wonder was planned. You lit flames of strange colors. You dropped objects to prove they fell the same. You drew circles and claimed they described the heavens. If you faltered, a cough from the crowd reminded you that reputation could vanish faster than smoke. You learned the rituals. Ink on your fingers, chalk on your sleeves, the slight bow before beginning. Clients came not with coins, but with questions, and questions were worth more. Some wanted to believe, some wanted to mock, some wanted to prove you wrong. You learned to smile at all of them, and slowly you became a name. Not because you were the cleverest, not because you smiled the most, but because you didn't. They said you had discipline. What they meant was that you had stopped fighting the endless work, the endless proving. Your body learned the gestures of certainty, the steady hand, the unblinking eye. You became profitable. The academy displayed you. Patrons paid extra just to watch you prepare. Sharpening quills, polishing glass, arranging instruments with the grace of ritual. You didn't talk much. You didn't need to. Men begged for your attention. Some wanted only to listen. Some wanted more. Some wanted to break your theories. You learned to fake patience. They loved that. You learned to fake humility. They loved that more. At last you reached the height of it. Discovery. The moment when years of dust and ink and exhaustion hardened into something sharp enough to cut through ignorance. A telescope aimed at the heavens. A pendulum swinging steady as a heartbeat. A formula scribbled in margins that turned into law. You became a favorite, not only in halls but in history. Letters bearing your name crossed countries. Some praised, some condemned, all repeated. You didn't touch the coins. Patrons held them for you, claiming it was an investment in your future. You wondered if they meant your grave. They began to prepare you for permanence. Not castration, but canonization. Your words carved into books, your name into debates, your image into portraits. Only the best received that. The promise that you would never age on paper, never fade in lectures, never be replaced without being quoted first. You nodded at the honor. But inside, something folded in half and never unfolded again. Because you stopped asking questions like, what am I? What will I become? You already knew the answer. A thinker, a name, a product of the age. They woke you at dawn, not with shouts, but with honors. This wasn't punishment. This was a promotion. They gave you a bath in recognition, in praise thick as oil. You were not a boy. You were not even just a man. You were an emblem. A velvet plum of reason. You had to smell like the truth before they sliced you into textbooks. No one told you what it would mean. But you knew. Those who became immortal in print never returned quite the same. Their voices turned distant, their laughter misplaced, their eyes fixed on the horizon of eternity rather than the street before them. You walked into that room willingly. The room where your words would be sealed. The floor was warm, as if soaked in other people's ambition. There were no windows, just ink, paper, press. You drank the thick wine of fame. It tasted of copper and sleep. You could still feel everything, but you hummed as you signed your name, steady as a surgeon's hand. And when you rose, you did not walk the same. You did not think the same. You did not feel the same. You are different now. Something new, something marketable. Something is already half gone. Years passed, and you turned old in a world that no longer looked at you with the same eyes. There was no cake, no celebration, just quieter halls and colder glances. Your price was lowered. Your discoveries, once treasures, became overhead expenses. They stopped dressing your lectures in silk and ceremony. Students no longer gathered for your voice. They gathered for the younger minds who sparkled the way you once had. You still smiled when they entered, still traced circles on the board, still summoned fire from powders. But the light in your gestures was only a habit now. The rest of you are gone. One day, no one called for you at all. Then another, and another. You were summoned, but not to present. The academy no longer looked you in the eye when they spoke. You had a good run, they said. That was it. No farewell, no procession, just a nod toward the door. They gave you one robe, one book, no coin. They unlocked the gate and gestured toward the street. Don't come back. You hesitated, not because you wanted to stay, but because you had no idea what existed beyond this place. You had never plowed a field, never swung a hammer, never lived a day without ink. You stepped into the cold. Your robe was thin. Your legs were shaky. The crowd didn't notice you. You were just another shadow, limping past the firelight. A week later, you were begging near the square. One of your old patrons passed. He laughed, tossed a copper, missed on purpose. You picked it up anyway. You slept in doorways, drank melted snow. Your body began to rot from the inside out. The pain returned, but now it brought no one pleasure, no one progressed. You weren't a philosopher anymore. You were just another cough in the wind, another worn object thrown away. They found your body days later, curled beneath a stairwell, half covered in frost. No one claimed it. Your skin was gray, your fingers blackened, your eyes half open, still searching for recognition. But none came. You were carried away with the drunk and the thief, buried in a trench behind the city wall. No marker, no prayer, not even a number. The academy didn't mention you again. Your name was given to the next student, passed along as if it were only a role in a play, as if you had never existed.